All right, so to remove this upper control arm here, or also what Mercedes-Benz calls a torque strut, we have to take the wheel off, and then we have to remove the strut from the hub area so that we can actually pull that out, because you can see the strut is actually right above where the ball joint end attaches from the lower control arm or torque strut. And then I have the bushings for this arm here, which is called the cross strut, or also the lower control arm, but I'm trying to find somebody to press the bushing for me. I don't have an actual press with me to do that. It's kind of, people around where I live are being a little weird about it, so trying to figure that out. So this video may also entail that, or it might not. I'm not sure yet, waiting on some phone calls. So either way, we need to remove the under tray from the vehicle. There's going to be bolt here, and then that one there, and it's going to be the same thing on the opposite side as well. So remove those. They're 8 millimeters. And I did forget to mention, if you're supporting the vehicle with a jack in the center point there through that hole, then obviously you won't be able to remove this without removing the jack. So the vehicle does need to be on jack stands. I forgot to tell you that we were on jack stands while I was removing this. So now we have to remove the U-bolt here so that we can remove this armature from the sway bar. So the first bolts we're gonna loosen up and take out here are the sway bar mounting bracket bolts. So we're gonna drop this down. We're also gonna have one the same on the other side because we're doing both arms. You're supposed to replace these in pairs anyways, or even if you're replacing this one. So you should never really be replacing one at a time anyways. Sway bar is free. Okay, so when it comes time to remove the cross strut or lower control arm, upper control arm bolt, if you don't have two 21 millimeter wrenches, you're gonna have to remove inner fender basically right here. So 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, and then a couple little plastic pops on the bottom side. Okay, now we can proceed to remove the bolt for the upper control arm. And I'm only working the nut side, not the bolt side. Okay, so we got a nut. We have a really big thick washer. Now we can slide our bolt out. So from what I have read, there is some of these that are grooved apparently. I'm not 100% on this, maybe some misinformation, but that was why they were stressing to not move this in the event that you had a grooved bolt, you could mess it up. So on this car, either way, pretty safe from what I understand. Now the arm is actually loose. So if you didn't buy an entire arm like I did to replace the bushing and the ball joint, and you're just replacing the bushing, now if you had the correct tool, you could press this bushing in and out. Then you would put it back up in here and put the bolt in, and then snug the nut and bolt just enough to keep this in there, and then lower the car, and you're going to tighten it actually on the ground because it can affect the ride height, and this will actually rotate and put a bunch of stress on the bushing and cause it to prematurely fail. So make sure you do that, but we're going to continue on because we're replacing the whole arm, so we have to remove the ball joint now. Okay, time to put the 21 on the bottom of the ball joint here. We're going to loosen this up. We're not gonna pull it all the way off. I'm actually going to take some grease and put it around this boot here. And I'm just gonna use some caliper grease. Just keep some lubrication on there for the pickle fork side of this spreader so it doesn't destroy the ball joint rubber. And get this in there like that. Then we're gonna run down this bolt so that we can start spreading this, which in turn will start wanting to lift this while pushing this upwards. There we go. And if it doesn't actually pop loose like that, you take a hammer and you smack right here and here, and it will typically free this up. The reason we leave the nut on there is so that when this arm flies up, nothing just like comes flying apart and, you know, ends up hurting somebody or something. So now we'll just back our bolt out, get that off there. As you can see, it's still pinned in, so we have a bolt here, bolt on the opposite side, and then a inverted Torx on this other side. Okay, I think you guys can see there's a nut here, as well as there is a nut right here. Hopefully you guys can see this. And then we have to go at our inverted Torx right here. We also need to pull these rubber the wires out of their a little difficult to do with one hand. I don't want to break something, but need to remove the wires out of here and out of there so that when we allow this to fold this way, we don't yank on any of this. So the two bolts on the bottom side are removed. Mine came off, one with a washer and one without, so I don't know if this has been previously taken apart and somebody forgot a washer, so keep an eye out for that. You may have one, you may not. Next thing was the upper inverted Torx bolts here. Once this comes out, this is gonna actually come loose. So don't forget, make sure that your wires are unclipped. They were clipped up here, here, and back here. So we're gonna keep those away from there, and then we're gonna pull this out. We have to wiggle a little bit back and forth on the actual rotor and hub assembly here to walk this out. And then as you can see, it's gonna open up everything, and we're gonna be able to pull this Torx strut out of here. There we go. I've pushed down a little bit on this and finagle this around a little bit, but there's our entire arm. So you can see this had a fluid inside of it, and when it broke out, it dumped oil all over my driveway. It was actually really, really annoying. I have a really nice, only 2-year-old driveway, and now I got a huge oil stain thanks to Mercedes Benz. So now we're ready to put the new knuckle, or the new upper control arm up in there, and then get the knuckle back up to the strut here. All right, so we got our new arm here. I bent the ball joint. I shoved it so it was pointing inwards so we could actually rotate it into position here. Okay, now we're going to get our new nut. Now if you notice these nuts, the top side has a it's machined right here, and it's completely flat here. So this is going to be aiming away from the the bolt. So we're going to thread it on like this. So you want the flat surface bottoming out against the flat side of the knuckle here. Okay, we'll just leave that loose for right now. Now we need to push this back up and just reverse assembly of the way that we took everything apart. So we're going to get this up, we'll put this into here, then we will go after and put these two down into the bottom. Then it will be bolting back the bushing portion into the chassis from the upper control arm here. Then the sway bar bracket is reinstalled, and then our leveling portion or something of that nature, I'm not 100%, that will reattach back to your sway bar. And you're done. Well, put your wheel back on and you're done, and then go to the alignment shop, I guess. I'm not really sure how much this controls alignment, to be honest. So we're gonna find this out when I get this back in the car here on both sides. I imagine it's gonna be out a bit, but looking at it, it doesn't really look like there's anything that's able to be adjusted. It all looks like hard mounted pieces. So I don't know, maybe the adjustment is more done from here, which this is more of a straight shot. So if we were adjusting camber, my assumption it would be off of this arm versus this arm. So I'm going to say we adjust camber here, and then I guess we're adjusting toe with the tie rod. I mean, that's pretty normal, because that's going to move us in and out like this, and this lower arm should articulate us like this. So we'll find out here as we go, but that's my assumption here of what's going on. Okay, so I had some issues getting the sway bar mounted back up with everything wanting to become in alignment. You can see the bushing is cantered to the left side there, so you can't really manipulate it too much. So what we have to do is undo this bolt, and this is going to spin on this. It's a ball joint type of a deal behind here, as you can see there, because it needs to pivot as the sway bar kind of moves up and down. So we need to put a 7mm on the end of this and a 16mm wrench here. I'll show you how to get it done. It's going to look like, and you're going to hold the 7mm stationary, and you're going to work your ratchet wrench here going up and down. So preferably you have a ratchet wrench. If you don't, this is going to take a long time to get done for you. So just get that off there, remove this outwards, then you can put that back up in there. Okay, as you can see, I have the vehicle back down. There's no jack stands. The jack is actually off the vehicle. We are fully sitting on the vehicle's weight. I now have the box end of our wrench on the back side of the bolt, and I have the socket on the nut side, and we're just going to tighten this up until it's tight while the vehicle is down. Then we're going to go to the other side and do the same thing, and then you're going to be done.